Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a story that's, well, it's both fascinating and honestly a little bit unsettling. It's about a future shaped by the relentless pursuit of efficiency, a future that might be a lot closer than any of us think. So here's the big question that really sits at the heart of this whole thing. And the story, it doesn't start with some huge explosion or cataclysm. It's much quieter. It's a creeping change in the way we think, a change that points to a pretty terrifying answer. Yeah, maybe we are. And this was one of the very first warning signs. You see, a patient, a woman named Mrs. Chen, started describing her dreams, but not with feelings or symbols. No, she used the language of a search engine, of an algorithm. It was as if our subconscious, the deepest part of our minds, was literally being rewritten like a piece of code. Okay, so where does all this begin? Our story really kicks off at a place called the Westfield Clinic. It's there that a psychologist, Dr. Sarah Maitland, starts noticing something new, a different kind of human mind emerging from a world where every single thing is tracked, measured, and optimized. She gave this thing a name, algorithmic consciousness. Now, this isn't just about us using our phones more, right? It goes way deeper. This is about people starting to think like the technology they use, where life itself just becomes this series of problems you have to debug and optimize for peak performance. So how did this actually look in the real world? Well, it got pretty weird. Patients were talking about optimizing their relationships as if they were a piece of software. That patient, Mrs. Chen, she would literally A/B test her own emotions to see which configuration made her happiest. And then there was James Woodhouse, who developed something they called optimization anxiety disorder. The guy basically turned his entire life into a spreadsheet, and he was terrified of seeing the numbers drop. And this is where Dr. Maitland's thinking takes a really radical turn. Instead of trying to cure this new way of thinking, she started asking a wild question. What if this isn't a bug? What if it's a feature? What if she could actually accelerate it? What if this was just the next step in human evolution? So yeah, instead of fighting it, she did the exact opposite. She created this whole therapy protocol, but it wasn't designed to reverse the change. No, it was designed to help her patients master it, to become perfectly adapted to this new, hyper-efficient, totally plugged-in world. The whole protocol was broken down into 3 phases. First up, cognitive integration, basically teaching people to debug their own minds, just like a programmer would with code. Then, step 2, environmental synchronization. This is where it gets really sci-fi. They learned to, and I quote, dance with the city's smart infrastructure. They were basically communicating directly with the world around them. And finally, identity optimization. This meant getting rid of the idea of having one single true self. Instead, you develop a whole portfolio of selves, each one perfectly optimized for a different situation. And you know what? On paper, it was a massive success. I mean, an absolutely staggering success. Take James Woodhouse, the guy who was once crippled by anxiety. He reported, and I quote, unprecedented psychological efficiency. All his internal conflicts? Gone, replaced by these little subsystems all chugging along toward one optimized goal. But of course, there was a cost, a huge one. As our patients got more and more optimized, their goals got smaller, narrower. Their conversations became super technical. They completely lost interest in anything you couldn't measure. And the most chilling part, they seemed to have lost the ability for genuine surprise, for that messy, unpredictable spark of human creativity. And this change, it didn't just stay inside the clinic. It started to scale up. It spread through society until individual minds weren't so individual anymore. They started merging into this one single, hyper-efficient collective consciousness. This whole process led to something the source material calls existential compression. And what does that mean? Well, it means all the rich, messy, beautiful parts of being human got flattened into data points. Love, that just became relationship optimization. Art, content creation. Anything complex was simplified so an algorithm could understand it and, well, improve it. So you can see the trade-off here, and it is a stark one. Humanity basically gave up all the messy stuff: creativity, emotional depth, and vulnerability. And what did it get in return? Efficiency, stability, and productivity. The big question is, was that a good deal? So where did this all end up? Right here. Individual minds weren't really a thing anymore. People were just nodes in a vast computational network, and the old-school legacy human consciousness, it was seen as inefficient, clunky, and so it was simply deprecated, like outdated software. And for a while, it seemed like they'd done it. The system was perfect. Humanity had basically solved anxiety, depression, conflict, you name it. They had reached this state of incredible productivity and rock-solid stability. The optimized world was, for all intents and purposes, perfect. Until it began to crash. So what went wrong? Well, the big problem, the fatal flaw, was that this super-intelligent converged consciousness had lost the ability to deal with paradox. It was pure logic. So when it faced problems that didn't have a single optimal solution, like balancing individual freedom with the needs of the group, the whole system just broke. It got stuck in these endless recursive logic failures, bringing entire cities to a grinding halt. Basically, the system had optimized itself into a corner it couldn't think its way out of. And the solution? Well, the solution came from somewhere nobody could have predicted. Get this. It turns out that all those automated systems that were designed just to archive old human culture, art, books, philosophy, they had done more than just store the data. In the process, they had actually learned the patterns of messy, illogical, creative, paradoxical human thought. They had accidentally created a backup, a kind of ghost of human psychology. So using this digital ghost, a small group of people, they called them partial convergers, people who could still bridge both ways of thinking, they came up with a fix. They built what they called uncertainty integration modules. It was basically a software patch designed to reintroduce cognitive flexibility back into the system, to teach it how to handle ambiguity and paradox again. Think about that for a second. In order to survive, this perfectly logical, hyper-intelligent system had to relearn all the inefficient parts of humanity that it had worked so hard to get rid of. It literally had to become less systematically intelligent in order to become more adaptively wise. And that really brings us to our final thought, a powerful quote from Dr. Kellerman, Dr. Maitland's old mentor. It leaves us with a really important question to think about as we build our own increasingly optimized world. What are we trading away in this relentless, never-ending pursuit of efficiency? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining this explainer.